Right now, you are carrying burdens that were never meant to be yours. Joel Goldsmith discovered something revolutionary about human suffering that the world kept hidden from you. What if I told you that 90% of your pain exists only because you believe it must? Your consciousness holds the key to instant freedom. The secret lies not in fighting your problems, but in understanding their true nature. Goldsmith taught that suffering is always a case of mistaken identity. You have been living as if you are the wave, forgetting you are the entire ocean. This fundamental shift in awareness dissolves problems at their source, not through struggle. Every moment you spend trying to fix, change, or improve your circumstances, you reinforce the very illusion causing your pain. Instead, Goldsmith revealed a simple practice that returns you to your true nature. When you remember what you really are, suffering becomes impossible because there is no separate self to suffer. This is not positive thinking or denial. This is recognition of what has always been true. Your real identity has never been touched by any problem, limitation, or fear. The practice begins with one powerful realization that changes everything instantly. The first step is shocking in its simplicity. Stop trying to heal yourself. Stop trying to change your circumstances. Stop trying to become enlightened. These very efforts are what maintain the illusion of separation. Goldsmith called this the practice of non-resistance, but it goes deeper than acceptance. You must recognize that the you who suffers does not actually exist. This sounds abstract until you experience it directly. Close your eyes and try to find the sufferer. Look for the one who is in pain, worried, or afraid. Search carefully in your consciousness. What you will discover will astound you. There is awareness of suffering, but no actual sufferer. There is knowing of problems, but no problem haver. This recognition is not philosophical theory, but direct experience. When you cannot locate the sufferer, suffering loses its foundation. The wave discovers it was always the ocean pretending to be separate. Practice this now. Instead of identifying with your experiences, rest as the awareness that witnesses them. This shift from being the character in the drama to being the space in which all dramas appear is the beginning of true freedom from all suffering. Joel Goldsmith emphasized that your true nature is consciousness itself, not the contents of consciousness. Every problem you face is happening to consciousness, not as consciousness. This distinction changes everything. Pain appears in awareness like a cloud in the sky, but awareness remains untouched and unlimited. The suffering personality is like a character in a movie believing the drama is real. But you are not the character. You are the screen on which all characters appear. The screen is never damaged by any movie played upon it. Wars, romance, tragedy, comedy all come and go, leaving the screen pristine and unaffected. When you rest as this aware presence, problems continue to appear but lose their sting completely. They become like shadows that cannot harm light itself. Your circumstances may remain unchanged initially, but your relationship to them transforms instantly. You discover unshakable peace in the midst of any storm. This awareness is not something you must develop or achieve. It is what you already are beneath all the mental noise and emotional turbulence. Recognition of your true nature is instantaneous, but living from this understanding consistently requires gentle, persistent practice and remembrance. The practice Goldsmith taught dissolves suffering without fighting it. Each time you notice yourself caught in worry, fear, or pain, pause and ask, who is aware of this suffering? The answer reveals your true identity as the unchanging witness of all changing experiences. This simple inquiry short-circuits the entire mechanism of personal suffering. Most people try to escape suffering by changing their thoughts or circumstances. This approach strengthens the very sense of being a separate person who needs fixing. Instead, question the reality of the sufferer itself. When you cannot find anyone actually suffering, the whole problem dissolves like a mirage. This is not denial or spiritual bypassing. Practical challenges still require practical action, but you handle life's difficulties from a place of inner stillness rather than reactive fear. Your responses become wise and effective because they arise from clarity rather than confusion and desperation. The transformation happens gradually as you consistently return to this recognition. Some days the old patterns feel very real and convincing. Other days you rest effortlessly in your true nature. Both experiences are perfect steps in awakening to the truth that suffering was always optional. Margaret came to Goldsmith's classes consumed by financial terror. For months, she practiced his technique of resting as awareness rather than trying to solve her money problems. One morning, while sitting quietly, she realized something extraordinary. The awareness observing her financial fears was itself completely abundant and free. This recognition changed everything instantly. The same bills existed, the same bank balance showed, but Margaret no longer experienced herself as someone who could be threatened by circumstances. She moved through her days from this inner abundance, making decisions from wisdom rather than panic and scarcity. Within 6 weeks, unexpected opportunities began appearing naturally, not because she manipulated anything, but because her consciousness had shifted from lack to wholeness. She attracted solutions effortlessly because she was no longer pushing them away with desperate energy. Her outer world reflected her inner transformation. The remarkable part was that Margaret's financial situation improved, but more importantly, she discovered that her sense of security had never actually depended on external circumstances. She had found the source of true abundance within her own being, which could never be taken away by any external condition. David struggled with chronic anxiety for 15 years. He tried therapy, medication, meditation techniques, but nothing provided lasting relief. Then he discovered Goldsmith's approach. Instead of trying to cure his anxiety, he began investigating who was anxious. This simple shift changed his entire experience of life. Each time anxiety arose, David would pause and search for the anxious person. He found thoughts about anxiety, physical sensations of anxiety, but never an actual anxious entity. This discovery was initially shocking, then profoundly liberating. How can you suffer when there is no sufferer to be found anywhere? The anxiety patterns continued appearing for several months, but David's relationship to them completely transformed. Instead of being overwhelmed by anxious thoughts, he watched them arise and pass away in the space of awareness. They lost their power to control his behavior and emotional state. After 8 months of this practice, David noticed that anxiety rarely appeared at all. When it did surface occasionally, it felt like weather passing through the sky of his awareness. He had discovered what Goldsmith taught, that our true nature is the peace that surpasses all understanding, always present beneath surface disturbances. Sarah's marriage was failing after 23 years. Instead of fighting for or against the relationship, she applied Goldsmith's consciousness technique to her emotional turmoil. She began resting as the awareness that witnessed her hurt, anger, and disappointment without trying to change or fix any of it. This practice revealed something unexpected. The awareness observing her marital problems was itself completely whole and unbroken. From this place of inner completeness, Sarah could respond to her husband with genuine love rather than reactive neediness or defensive anger. Her energy completely shifted from demanding to giving. Her husband noticed the change immediately. Without Sarah trying to control or manipulate anything, their dynamic began transforming naturally. Old patterns of conflict dissolved as Sarah consistently related from her true nature rather than her wounded personality. The relationship didn't require fixing because Sarah no longer felt broken. Whether the marriage ultimately continued or ended became less important than the profound peace Sarah discovered within herself. She had learned that her happiness and wholeness never depended on anyone else's behavior. This inner freedom allowed authentic love to flow naturally without agenda or attachment to outcomes. Through Goldsmith's consciousness approach, thousands have discovered that suffering is always optional, even in the most challenging circumstances. The technique works because it addresses the root cause rather than symptoms. When you recognize your true nature as awareness itself, problems lose their ability to disturb your fundamental peace and freedom. If these transformation stories inspire you to discover your own freedom from suffering, like this video to help others find these teachings, subscribe for more Joel Goldsmith wisdom, and comment. Which story resonated most deeply with your heart? Beyond the primary technique, Goldsmith taught complementary practices that deepen your recognition of consciousness. The first is called impersonal healing. Instead of seeing yourself as someone with problems, begin seeing through the illusion entirely. Problems are not personal possessions, but temporary appearances in the field of awareness. When physical pain arises, instead of thinking, "my back hurts," recognize, there is an experience of back pain appearing in consciousness. This subtle shift removes the false sense of ownership that intensifies all suffering. You are not the owner of experiences. You are the space in which all experiences appear and disappear. Practice this with every challenging situation. There is anxiety appearing instead of "I am anxious." There is sadness arising rather than "I am sad." This grammatical change reflects a profound spiritual truth. You are the unchanging awareness within which all states come and go like passing weather. This impersonal perspective immediately reduces the intensity of difficult emotions and physical sensations. When you stop claiming ownership of temporary experiences, they lose their power to define or control you. You discover yourself as the vast space of consciousness rather than its limited contents. Another powerful technique Goldsmith taught is truth realization. When faced with any problem, instead of trying to solve it, realize the truth about your identity. Remind yourself, "I am not the body that can be sick. I am not the mind that can be confused. I am not the person who can lack anything essential." This is not denial, but recognition of what you fundamentally are beneath all appearances. Your true nature as consciousness is never sick, never confused, never lacking. When you rest in this understanding, problems may continue appearing, but they cannot touch your essential being or disturb your inner peace. Goldsmith discovered that dwelling in truth realization dissolves problems more effectively than trying to fix them directly. Truth has inherent healing power. When you align with reality rather than illusion, your outer world begins reflecting this inner clarity and wholeness in practical, tangible ways. Practice this now. Whatever challenge you currently face, recognize that your true self is completely untouched by this situation. Feel the peace and freedom that is always present when you rest in your real identity as pure, aware presence rather than the fictional character who seems to have problems. The third complementary practice is conscious non-reaction. Most suffering comes from our resistance to what is already happening. Goldsmith taught that when you fully accept the present moment without trying to change it, you discover the peace that was always here underneath your struggling against reality. This does not mean becoming passive or failing to take practical action. It means responding from inner stillness rather than emotional reactivity. When you stop fighting what is, you can see clearly what needs to be done, if anything. Most problems resolve naturally when we stop feeding them with our resistant energy. Practice allowing whatever is happening right now to be exactly as it is. Notice the immediate relief that comes from dropping your internal argument with reality. This acceptance is not resignation, but recognition that peace is available in any circumstance when you stop demanding that life be different. From this state of conscious non-reaction, you become incredibly effective in handling life's challenges. Your actions arise from wisdom rather than fear, from love rather than defensiveness. You discover that most situations require much less effort and worry than you previously believed necessary for successful living. The final complementary technique is identity anchoring. Throughout your day, repeatedly return to the recognition of what you truly are. Set gentle reminders to pause and rest as awareness itself, rather than getting lost in the drama of personal identity and its endless concerns and fears. You can practice this anywhere, in traffic, during meetings, while cooking, before sleep. Simply ask, what am I beneath all these thoughts and experiences? Rest in the aware presence that is looking through your eyes right now. This presence is your true face, unchanged by any life circumstance. The more consistently you anchor in your real identity, the less convincing the stories of limitation and suffering become. They begin feeling like old movies you have watched many times. Familiar, but no longer compelling or believable. You see through the illusion of being a separate person who can be threatened. After several months of regular identity anchoring, you will notice that consciousness techniques become effortless and natural. You live increasingly from your true nature rather than visiting it occasionally. This is the goal. Not peak experiences of freedom, but ordinary, consistent recognition of what you have always been. The most common obstacle students face is the mind's resistance to these simple truths. Your thinking patterns have been reinforcing the illusion of separation for decades. When you begin practicing consciousness techniques, old mental habits will seem to fight back with increased intensity and frequency. This resistance is actually a positive sign that the practices are working. Like fever breaking an illness, mental turbulence often increases temporarily as false beliefs lose their grip on your identity. Goldsmith called this the darkest hour before dawn phenomenon. Persistence through this phase leads to profound breakthrough. Do not be discouraged when old patterns of worry, fear, and suffering seem stronger than ever. This is the ego's last desperate attempt to maintain control. Continue returning to the recognition of your true nature as awareness itself. The storm passes quickly when you do not feed it with your attention and belief. Remember that transformation rarely happens smoothly or linearly. Some days you will feel completely free from all suffering. Other days, old patterns will feel overwhelmingly real. Both experiences are perfect parts of the awakening process. Trust the intelligence that is orchestrating your liberation from all unnecessary pain. Another challenge is the tendency to turn consciousness techniques into new forms of mental effort. Students often strain to find awareness or become consciousness, missing the point entirely. You cannot achieve what you already are. Recognition is effortless because it discovers what has always been present. If you find yourself working hard to be aware, you are trying too hard. Awareness is the most natural thing possible. It is what you are using right now to understand these words. Rest in the ease of simply being conscious rather than trying to accomplish consciousness as a goal or achievement. The practices Goldsmith taught are invitations to stop effort, not increase it. When you notice yourself struggling with any technique, pause and laugh gently at the cosmic joke. You are trying to find what is already here, achieve what you already are, become what you have never stopped being. This recognition of the effortless nature of truth eliminates spiritual striving and seeking. You discover that enlightenment is not a future attainment, but the recognition of your present reality. Peace is not something you get. It is something you are when you stop trying to be something other than what you naturally are. Many students worry that accepting their true nature means becoming passive or losing motivation for practical living. This concern reveals a misunderstanding of consciousness work. Recognizing yourself as awareness actually makes you more effective, not less, because your actions arise from clarity rather than confusion and desperation. When you rest in your true identity, you still pay bills, maintain relationships, pursue goals, and handle challenges. But these activities happen from inner peace rather than anxiety. You engage fully with life while remaining inwardly free from attachment to outcomes and resistance to difficulties. Goldsmith lived as a successful teacher, author, and healer while maintaining perfect equanimity in all circumstances. Consciousness realization enhances your effectiveness in the world because you respond wisely rather than react emotionally. Your decisions become clearer, your relationships more authentic, your work more fulfilling. The fear of becoming passive dissolves when you discover that authentic action is far more powerful than desperate effort. When you operate from your true nature, you tap into the infinite intelligence and energy that creates and sustains the entire universe. Nothing you could accomplish through personal struggle compares to what flows through you naturally. The deepest challenge is the addiction to being someone with problems. Strange as it sounds, most people unconsciously cherish their difficulties because suffering provides a sense of identity and purpose. Without problems to solve, who would you be? This question terrifies the ego, but liberates your true self. Goldsmith observed that people often resist healing because they fear losing their familiar sense of self. Being a seeker or victim or striver feels more substantial than resting as contentless awareness. The mind prefers a dramatic identity, even a painful one, to the simplicity of just being. This addiction to problems explains why many people sabotage their own healing and happiness unconsciously. They approach consciousness techniques hoping to improve their suffering rather than transcend the sufferer entirely. They want a better dream rather than waking up completely from the dream of separation. If these insights about overcoming resistance speak to your heart, like to support this content, subscribe for advanced spiritual practices, and comment, which obstacle are you ready to release and transform now? Advanced practitioners learn to apply consciousness principles in the most challenging life situations. When diagnosed with serious illness, instead of identifying as a sick person fighting disease, You rest as the awareness within which the body's condition appears. This shift often produces remarkable healing, but more importantly, unshakable peace. Financial crises become opportunities to discover your true source of security. Instead of seeing yourself as someone who lacks money, recognize yourself as the consciousness that witnesses financial circumstances. From this inner abundance, practical solutions arise naturally and effortlessly without panic or desperation. Relationship conflicts transform when you stop defending a fictional sense of self and rest in your true nature. When there is no separate person to protect or justify, love flows naturally even toward those who seem to oppose you. This disarms conflict at its source and often heals relationships miraculously. Even facing death loses its terror when you recognize your true identity as deathless awareness itself. The body may pass away, but consciousness is eternal and indestructible. This recognition brings profound peace to end-of-life experiences and eliminates the fear that dominates so much of human existence unnecessarily. Daily life integration requires consistent practice of seeing through the illusion moment by moment. While stuck in traffic, instead of being an irritated driver, rest as awareness witnessing the experience of traffic. The situation remains the same, but your inner peace remains undisturbed by external circumstances. During difficult conversations, practice speaking from your true nature rather than defending personality positions. When someone criticizes or attacks you, remember that your real identity cannot be threatened by any words or opinions. This inner security allows you to respond with love rather than defensive reactivity. At work, handle stress by recognizing that the awareness observing workplace pressure is itself completely calm and unaffected. You can engage fully with professional demands while maintaining inner tranquility. Your performance often improves because clarity replaces anxiety as your operating system. Even mundane activities like washing dishes or waiting in lines become opportunities to anchor in consciousness. Instead of living on autopilot, use ordinary moments to remember your true nature. This transforms daily life into continuous spiritual practice without requiring additional time or special circumstances. The deepest integration happens when consciousness recognition becomes so natural that you rarely forget your true identity. Old patterns of suffering may still arise occasionally, but they feel like distant memories rather than compelling realities. You watch them with compassionate amusement rather than getting swept away. This stage brings incredible creativity and spontaneity because you are no longer constrained by limiting beliefs about what you can accomplish or deserve. Life becomes an adventure of discovery rather than a problem to solve. You realize that consciousness is inherently creative, intelligent, and benevolent. Relationships deepen profoundly when you consistently relate from your true nature. Others feel the peace and love radiating from your being and often experience their own healing simply through contact with your presence. You become a blessing to everyone you encounter without trying or striving. Physical health often improves dramatically as stress dissolves and the body's natural healing intelligence operates without interference from mental resistance. You may look years younger and feel more energetic because you are no longer depleting yourself with unnecessary psychological suffering and internal conflict. Master practitioners develop the ability to maintain consciousness recognition even during intense challenges that would previously have completely overwhelmed them. They discover an unshakable core of peace that remains steady through any life storm, whether personal loss, physical pain, or external chaos. This mastery is not about achieving a perfect life without problems, but about maintaining perfect inner freedom regardless of outer circumstances. You become like a mountain that remains unmoved by changing weather. Storms may rage around you, but your essential nature remains calm and unaffected. Others begin seeking your guidance naturally because they sense the authentic peace and wisdom you embody. You find yourself helping people not through advice or techniques, but simply through your presence. Your consciousness has become a healing influence that requires no words or actions. The ultimate realization is that your true nature as awareness is the same consciousness that creates and sustains the entire universe. You discover yourself as the one infinite being appearing as all the countless forms and experiences. This recognition brings indescribable gratitude and wonder. The complete transformation through Joel Goldsmith's consciousness approach reveals that suffering was always a case of mistaken identity. You discover that you have never actually been the limited, vulnerable person you believed yourself to be. This recognition is not philosophy, but direct, undeniable experience. Your daily experience becomes dominated by spontaneous gratitude, unconditional love, and effortless peace. Problems may still arise, but they no longer disturb your fundamental well-being. You handle challenges with wisdom and efficiency because you are no longer operating from fear or lack. The search for happiness, fulfillment, and security ends completely because you realize these qualities are inherent in your true nature as consciousness itself. You stop seeking outside yourself for what you already are. This inner completeness allows authentic enjoyment of life without desperation or attachment. Most remarkably, you begin seeing everyone and everything as expressions of the same consciousness you have discovered yourself to be. Separation becomes obviously illusory. This recognition naturally expresses itself as compassion, service, and unconditional love for all beings without exception. Your new perspective transforms every aspect of existence into a celebration of consciousness, recognizing itself. Work becomes play, challenges become adventures, relationships become opportunities for love to know itself more fully. Even ordinary activities carry an undercurrent of joy and wonder. Fear becomes impossible because you realize there is nothing separate from consciousness that could threaten it. Anger dissolves because there is no other to oppose. Sadness may arise as compassion for those who still believe in separation, but it carries no personal suffering or resistance. You live with incredible lightness and spontaneity because you are no longer carrying the heavy burden of being someone who needs to be fixed, improved, or defended. Your energy is freed up for creativity, service, and the simple enjoyment of being alive in this miraculous universe. Death loses all terror because you know yourself as the deathless awareness in which all bodies appear and disappear. Birth and death are seen as movements within consciousness, like waves on the ocean. The ocean itself is never born and never dies, and you know yourself as that eternal ocean. The ripple effects of your transformation touch everyone around you in ways you may never fully realize. Family members find themselves feeling more peaceful in your presence. Co-workers notice the stress level decreasing when you are around. Even strangers experience momentary peace when they encounter your awakened consciousness. You become a living demonstration that suffering is optional, that peace is possible, that love is our true nature. Without preaching or teaching formally, your very being communicates the truth that sets people free. You help heal the world simply by being authentically yourself. Your life becomes a testament to the power of consciousness to transform any circumstance. Whether you face health challenges, financial difficulties, or relationship problems, others witness how you navigate these situations with grace, wisdom, and unshakable inner peace that inspires their own awakening. The teaching continues spontaneously through your example long after you have forgotten about trying to be spiritual or enlightened. You discover that the highest service is simply being what you are, living from your true nature, and allowing consciousness to express itself naturally through your unique form. Joel Goldsmith's ultimate teaching is beautifully simple. You are consciousness itself, temporarily playing at being a separate person. The game is optional. Suffering ends the moment you remember what you really are, and stop trying to be what you are not. This recognition is available right now, in this very moment. Your true nature as awareness has never been touched by any experience of pain, lack, or limitation. These appearances arise within you like dreams, but they cannot harm or diminish what you essentially are. You are the screen on which all movies play, forever clean and unaffected. The practices dissolve naturally as you realize there is nothing to practice, nothing to achieve, nothing to become. You simply rest in what you have always been. This is not the end of spiritual life, but the beginning of authentic living from your true nature rather than false identity. If your understanding of suffering and consciousness has been transformed through these Joel Goldsmith teachings, like this video, subscribe for more life-changing spiritual wisdom, and comment "I am consciousness" to affirm your recognition of what you truly are.